Hey, welcome to another countdown to Outbound. I'm Mark Hunter. I've got a cup of coffee. I don't know what you've got, but I'm drinking it. And hey, and this morning we have Colleen Francis in the studio. Going to be anxious to talk to her about what she sees happening in sales. So, hey, in just a moment, we will get Colleen up here. So, why don't we roll the video and we'll let the show roll. Good morning, Colleen. Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning to you too.
And you are coming from across the border. The border is open from a internet standpoint. So
the border is always open virtually.
It is. So, hey, what are you seeing? Because you have kind of a unique seat in your role. You get to work with so many different, really very unusual clients, very large clients, very small clients. You have a unique position. What are you seeing happening in the marketplace?
Oh man, what am I not seeing? I think is the actual easiest question to answer. Holy moly. It feels like every time I get on a call with a client these days, or we're in coaching environment, I have to say to them, you've made it through the wilderness again. As one guy said to me this morning, just before this, he's like, I couldn't get to that. I had 9 fires burning. And I laughed and said, only 9? You're not working hard enough, man. We're seeing so much change. I think one of the biggest impacts that we're seeing right now is that we are definitely not in a sell to environment anymore. We are in a buy from environment. Buyers are busy, they're stressed, they don't have enough workers in their offices to fill all the jobs. There's supply chain challenges that they're being faced with are affecting their organization. And so they're engaging how they want and when they want with sellers. And the best sellers are those who are willing to adapt their selling process to meet that.
Now, you said something very interesting there. We're not in a sell to environment, we're in a buy from environment. That's rather interesting. Unpack that a little more, because that's kind of fascinating.
Sure. I think what it means for my clients is they're doing a lot of outbound work, as always, right? But it's not as simple as making a call and getting a return call. Buyers are listening, watching, learning, and they're in an environment where we might think they're ignoring us because, 2 years ago, they would return our calls and we had perfectly crafted scripts and we knew what our ratios were. But right now, they're kind of in a just-in-time environment. They're so busy that they're saying, okay, that's important. And I really like what Mark had to say, but I can't get to it till next week. So I'm going to put it over here. And when I'm ready to talk to Mark, I will return his call, return his email, return his LinkedIn. And so what my clients are telling me is it can be frustrating, right? It kind of feels like you're on a roller coaster that's just going up and like you can kind of see the top, but you never get there. But what they're finding is they just have to continue flooding the marketplace with information, with calls, with high value information in order to sort of stand out and be ready for those return calls when they finally come. Because when buyers are ready to buy right now, they are ready to buy.
Hey, I like what you said, because what I've been saying is that, hey, everybody's got so many priorities. Like you said, the gentleman who had 9 fires, you said he's not working hard enough. But people are only really solving the top 1 or 2. In other words, if your solution doesn't help with their number 1 or number 2 priority, they're not going to returun the call. They're not going to. Yeah. But you got to keep the messages coming. You've got to keep. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. A manufacturing client of mine really struggled last year. They had CapEx. Their clients, they just sell a lot of automotive. Their clients, shut everything down, weren't producing. So they had all this stuff in the pipeline that they didn't lose, but it just kind of dragged on as people, figured out what's going on. Q1 hits of this year, floodgates are open. They're now $3 million over quota before the quarter ends, right? And so, all of this is happening, but now they're being faced with these supply chain issues, right? So just when you think your pipeline is normalized and everything is back to, a 30% closing ratio and whatever, your ratios are, now they're being faced with something else. And so thankfully they learned last year to keep the activity going, right? To keep the messages coming out, to keep the pipeline overweighted, to fill just because someone's not buying today doesn't mean someone else won't be buying. So to diversify, so they're not going to struggle through this supply chain issue the way they did with the COVID issue last year.
Yeah. Wow. Now you've used the word supply chain like 4 times, which is so critical for salespeople to understand the supply chain.
Oh.
Why is it that you think salespeople don't take enough time to understand? As I like to say, you really got to understand your upstream and your downstream.
Absolutely.
Why don't salespeople spend enough time in that?
Well, I think it's complicated, and I think that we don't, at its surface, we don't think it's going to affect us, right? Well, how can supply chain affect us? But here's an interesting scenario. A client of mine in the agricultural equipment business said to me, Colleen, it's the best year on record for farm income in 15 years. Farmers have more money to spend than ever before, and we can't get stuff to sell to them. We can't get parts. And we can't get aftermarket parts. We can't get equipment. We can't get stuff finished and off the line. We can't sell to them. So, if you're a salesperson, you got to understand how that's affecting your business. If you're selling to that agricultural supplier, you got to understand that their revenue could be shrinking in an up market for them. And so I also think you have to pay attention to it because it's the future. So salespeople, we tend to be wired for instant gratification. And let's face it, the stuff that's happening in the supply chain might not be affecting us today, but it could darn well be affecting us in 3 months.
Wow. Now there's something else is happening that I'm seeing. I'm curious if you're seeing it. We talked about, hey, salespeople got to keep going, keep messaging. But my fear is with the supply chain kind of busted business there, it's easy for salespeople to become rain barrels and just take the business that comes into them. Are you seeing any sense of that in organizations you're talking to?
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm definitely seeing salespeople being opportunistic. Absolutely. I love that term, rain barrels. That's funny. It's true. They're becoming opportunistic, but I don't think is a bad thing in the short term. Where I think it's dangerous is if they get used to taking the business that's coming from them and they stop the outbound work as a result. And salespeople, my experience is that can happen really easily because it's just easier, more fun, quicker to take the orders that are coming in than to continue the tough, hard slog of prospecting. So my message would be, sure, absolutely, be opportunistic, take everything that's coming at you as long as it's good, high quality business for your company. But do not stop the outbound prospecting, messaging, whatever it is that you guys do, following up on leads, pipeline cleanup. Otherwise, eventually your pipeline will dry up.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see so many salespeople going through a head spin. Go back to, okay, we can say it now, the Great Recession. I refused to use that term before the pandemic, but since pandemic, I guess Great Recession sounds okay. And it was interesting because we had a really, really good economy up to that point. Then we hit the Great Recession and suddenly salespeople realized they couldn't sell because really what they'd been doing was taking orders. Yeah. Then we go into this really a 9-10 year economic boom. You also had one up in Canada. And then, boom, the pandemic rolls and things grind to a halt. And suddenly we realize we can't sell. Now we're suddenly back. It's like whipsaw motion. So if I'm a sales leader, if I'm a VP of sales, a CRO, what are some of the things I should be doing to really be trying to stabilize my sales force and get them focused?
It's a great question. And first you have to be aware of it. A very smart client of mine in Southern California, Angus, said, my God, Colleen, did the pandemic ever expose some terrible sales behavior that we had? And I thought, as a CEO of a company, that's a really smart thing to be recognizing, because if you don't recognize the poor behaviors, then you can't fix it. So there's a couple of things really tactical that I think sales leaders need to be doing right now. One, the clients that I saw that were the most exposed during COVID lockdowns and now maybe even with current employment challenges are those sellers who rely on a single point of contact. More business was lost in the last year that I have seen because we couldn't get a hold of the person. They were out sick, they were laid off, they decided not to come back to work. And frankly, that is 100% a seller's problem. It's your problem because you haven't reached out to multiple people, so you had nowhere else to go. So sellers who said to me, well, I ghosted, I don't know, he's in maybe land or whatever term you want to use, it's largely a problem created because you became the gatekeeper.
Yeah, that single point of contact and ghosted. I love to come back and say, is ghosted a singular or a plural term? Because exactly, it's that single point of contact, and because all they'd been doing was taking orders. They had been taking orders. I tell CROs, I tell VPs of sales, I said, really, we have to look at the pandemic because this was a wonderful learning experience for us.
Yeah,
we had so many things exposed to us. I years ago, this is a dark side of my life. Years ago, I used to manage McDonald's restaurants. Okay, now that's weird. And it was easier to run a high volume McDonald's than a low volume. Sure. High volume covered up all the sins. It was really easy to make money. A low volume McDonald's, it was hard. Yeah. And the pandemic really exposed, and I think made us all better.
Oh, I think so. I think as long as people are willing to embrace where the challenges were, right? So that single point of contact, the sales leaders who looked at that and went, oh man, this is a huge problem for us, and have now stepped in and are coaching to make sure that we're building out multiple points of contact, and they too have contact, right, on their most important accounts is a big one. I think too, a point of learning for a lot of my clients was a realization that not all markets were suffering. And so if they were suffering with certain clients, they needed to maybe look left or right to find a market that was succeeding. So client of mine in automotive, for example, they realized, we helped them to realize, well, what you do for automotive can also be applied to RVs and boats and recreational vehicles that are booming right now. So why aren't we calling on Winnebago, right? Why aren't we calling on? And so just that, but because the automotive industry had been booming for some years, they didn't need to do that. They hadn't developed that skill set. So once they moved, I'm hesitating to use the P word, once they shifted their focus, so, it's going to be good for long term, right? Because now they're protected against a single market focus.
I had several clients that went through the same thing. The primary industry they were in devastated, but they branched out, and they're actually stronger today than they ever were. And this goes back to that single point of contact. You might be a salesperson. You've had one account. You had to have used the whole P. We won't say it, okay. To really diversify yourself and come out of it stronger. And I think the optimist in the organization, the optimist in the sales world, you're an optimist, I'm an optimist, viewed this experience we've gone through. Okay, we couldn't change it, but boy, we learned a lot, and we've come out of it better. Hey, we need to shift. We need to start shifting gears here a little bit. And unfortunately, you're not going to be on the main stage with us at Outbound this year. I'm crushed.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. I will be there as a virtual main stager. Yeah, the border closures is a real challenge. I just can't. I can get across. I just can't quarantine. Right? You got to quarantine, test, all of these challenges. Soon, our borders will be open.
I'm going to send Trudeau a VIP ticket to come to Outbound.
There you go.
So then maybe if he can, if we get him in the front row, get you on the main stage. It really is. You're definitely going to be back on the main stage with us next year. So you're part of the virtual. Absolutely. And it really is. Outbound. And this is where I think, other than the border being closed, the timing is really good because we're at the start of this economic boom. I've heard from a number of international people. 2 years ago, we had people from 17 countries. I got a client in Germany. He says, Mark, we just can't come. We just can't come this year. Yeah. And it painful, but they're all signing up for the virtual, which really is a great way to experience Outbound if you can't make it live. Now, what's your code? You've got a secret code, right?
I do, but I can never remember these things.
Okay, don't worry about it. Okay, just use what? What is it?
Questions.
Okay, don't worry about it. Hey, we'll give them an easy one. Mark 100. Use Mark 100. Don't worry about it. But anyway, it saves you $100. Man, I put Colleen on the spot. Look at that.
You did. I just can't remember. Just too many hours burning.
Well, hey, you know what though? What that means is that you have things very much sorted. You have things prioritized, and you say, you know what? I got people that take care of that. And that's really what you want. So that's good. So anyway, mark 100 if you go to Outbound Conference. And of course, the live tickets, June 15th through the 18th, various levels of tickets. Virtual starts on the 13th, runs through the 18th. It is really a cool program. Yeah. So anyway, but
I've been really impressed with the way the two are coming together. It's going to be a great event.
Yeah, including Outbound Down Under, which is really cool this year. That's something new that we've added. And that'll be streaming live from a studio in Sydney. So that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, really is cool. Hey, give us your outlook on 2021 for the back half and 2022. What are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing that change is going to continue to come, right? So I don't think that anyone can get comfortable right now. I think we're still, the supply chain issues are one thing which we have to watch, and the workforce issues. So the predictions right now are we're going to be 100,000 truck drivers short by the end of the year, which could start to affect all of you who sell into companies that ship their goods, right? So I think we're going to continue to see some disruption and some change and some companies being hesitant. That being said, I think the economy is going to continue to be on a tear. So I think the most important thing that salespeople and sales leaders need to do is to be open for that change. I would encourage everybody to kind of throw out the nuance of a universal best practice and instead think about look at the trends and make decisions on the best practice on a day-by-day or a week-by-week basis, because what is working now might not be what needs to work for you in 2 or 3 months from now. And so just being open to shift and change on a daily basis is the most critical skill that you can have.
Back up the truck, beep, beep, beep. Listen to that last 55 seconds that Colleen just shared about 5 times and let it sink into your brain, because that is absolutely brilliant. Hey, we got to run here in a bit, but after we roll the video, we do have an after the show, so stick around for that. But Colleen Francis, man, wisdom on steroids. I'm Mark Hunter, the sales hunter. And hey, thank you for listening to another Countdown to Outbound. We're going to roll a video and we're going to be right back. Hey, I didn't say that was going to be a long video, did I?
No.
Hey, thanks for being on. Doggone it. It's kind of funny. We've known each other for years, and yet we've really only have physically been in the same venue together probably a couple times. I remember once in London.
Yeah.
And then Outbound a couple years ago. And I'm not sure where,
from a work perspective, maybe. I think we've been together at NSA events, maybe.
Oh, that's right. Okay. A couple of NSA events. Yes. For those that is not a government agency. That's the National Speakers Association.
That's true.
That's good.
I don't even know. I wonder if they're running a live event this year.
Yes, they are. Yes,
they are.
Yes, they are in Vegas, first part of July.
Oh,
and,
okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So it, you know what? We're seeing here in the States more and more live events starting to happen, and I'm sure you're going to slowly start seeing them up in Canada.
Well, because I noticed that, even not work events, I'm a runner, so I follow all the races. The New York Marathon is running this year. The Army and Marine Corps Marathon is running this year. Chicago Marathon, they're all coming back live. And, sporting events, people are at sporting events. Yeah. So we're starting to see that as well. Quebec will be the first province that's going to allow spectators and larger events to happen. So that's good.
See, I've been able to run marathons throughout the entire pandemic because I run socially distanced. I'm so far behind the pack. So anyway. Hey, thanks for being with us. Hey, what is your website?
EngageSelling.com.
EngageSelling.com. So check that out, people. Colleen is just incredible. Any new books in the works? You wrote Sales Boom.
Ready to go to print with my new book, Right on the Money. It's funny, Mark, because I had finished the book in December of 2019, and we were kind of getting ready to go to print, and then the world fell apart, and we realized we couldn't really go to print. It would be ridiculous because I had written the book based on what was going on in 2018 and 2019, which is completely different than what's happening here. So it took me a better part of a year to rewrite what I wanted to rewrite, and now we're starting over.
Well, that's good. I'll be anxious to read that. So when do you expect to have the book out?
I think, by the end of this month, the ebook probably in 2 to 3 months, I think they said. And then, print takes a while when you're going through a publisher.
Yeah.
So the print book probably won't be out till the end of the year.
And I hope it's endorsed by your very good friend and my friend, Alan Weiss. So I'm just there you go. Figured.
I will have plenty of them at OutBound next year.
Good. Hey, thank you so much. Very, very much good to see you. Anxious to see your session on virtual and OutBound 2022. And our paths will cross maybe sometime before then. Okay.
I hope so. I hope so. Okay. Have fun.
Take care.
See you later. Take care.